Okay, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining tonight. Let's get started. So tonight's topic is secrets on how you can analyze deals in seconds. Okay, so I have a subject property that I would like to go over and analyze. Now, anybody, do you have a property that you want us to analyze for you? If you do, please send me the address via the chat, and then we're going to go ahead and analyze the property. Okay, so we're gonna, having said that, let's get started. So first of all, we're gonna analyze a current deal that we have in Lake Zurich, okay? That property is, let me open up ChicagoDealVault. So let's find this property. This property is located in Lake Zurich. Okay, now this is the property, the subject property that we're gonna be analyzing next. So now you might wonder, why did we go to Lake Zurich, right? Because we live by O'Hare in Schiller Park. So the reason is because Lake Zurich is a great neighborhood, okay? So I want to direct your attention to Lake Zurich. So I will just quickly give you an overview of Lake Zurich. For those of you who are not familiar with Lake Zurich, I just want to point out a few pieces of information that are very important when looking at areas. So number one, Lake Zurich it's a small town that has great amenities, great property prices, and then appreciation is high. Population growth is great, and it's a safe area. So it's a B area. So as you can see, something that I would like to remind you of is that when you look at an area, make sure that the livability score is above 70%, okay? So as you can see, if we scroll down, the crime is low. The red line is the average. So here we have the heat map is clean. If we scroll down, we see schools with the black markers. That means they're decent schools. Otherwise, it would be red or yellow. Now the income, as you can see, the purchasing power of families in Lake Zurich is almost twice as much as the average in Illinois. So whether you're gonna do a fix and flip or you're gonna do a buy and hold, the purchasing power in Lake Zurich is high. So you're gonna be able to sell the property for top dollars. Now, if we scroll down, this is, again, an important marker, right? Population growth. We want to invest in areas that we have a high population growth, okay? At least 5 and higher, okay? Anything between 0 and 5, it's very stable. You don't want to go into areas that have a negative population growth, okay? Now, the industry is going to tell us about the breakdown of the employers. So as you can see, 19% right here, we see a lot of hospitals, healthcare, schools. Scrolling down, housing occupancy, ordinary occupancy is 84.96, so 85%, which is great. The higher the better, because that tells you that there's a lot of pride in ownership, okay? And then look at this, renter occupancy, it's 10%. So there's very few rentals in this area. And then obviously the vacancy rate is lower. It's only 4.29, okay? Anything that is higher than 10%, you need to stay away because otherwise it's gonna affect your numbers. So this is a B area. We recommend a cash flow approach. Now, something that is very important to know when getting into the area, you've got to understand the sweet spot to buy the home and the sweet spot to sell the home. So this is analysis in the last 12 months. So we're going to be focusing on single family homes, which are detached. So the reason why we purchased a property in Lake Zurich is because the sweet spot to buy a property in Lake Zurich is over 400,000, right? So when we, the system flagged this property, listed for about 150 in Lake Zurich, and the property looked fairly decent, we jumped on it, right away, because we knew that the property sold for a lot higher. But something to keep in mind, friends, is that the average sold market time for a single family home in Lake Zurich is 120 days. So it's going to sit in the market for about 4 months, which is kind of high. So we knew this going into this area. So when we do the analysis for the fix and flip, we're going to need to take this into account. Okay. Another key indicator, obviously, are the rents. So rents tend to be high. So here, when we look at the breakdown of the rents, 1,500 or so for a 2-bedroom, but the time in the market for a rental is about 2 months. So it's still, we're accounting for at least 2 to 4 months for market time. So obviously we go with the conservative approach of 4 months. So now let's do the quick analysis on the property. So I'm just going to show you, first of all, how did we find this deal? We have under settings, we have deal alerts, okay? So in deal alerts, we have all the cities that we're interested in, and then we put in single family home and then the cap price, right? So we don't want to see properties that are over 250,000. So we have a bunch of areas that we want to look into, and then the system will just flag the deals under my deal alerts, okay? So if you look at your deal alerts in here, we're going to show you, you can filter these properties by hot deals, okay? So that's the default. So what that means, friends, is that, for instance, let me give an example. This property in Glen Ellen. So this is listed for 140,000, but the potential ARV on this property is 275. So Glen Ellen is an upscale area, it's an A area. So this is something that, for instance, it's important to take a look at, right? Do more due diligence because there's a big enough spread. You always want to have a spread of about 100,000 so that you have enough room to either buy and hold or do a fix and flip, okay? So this is how this property came about, right? So let's just quickly look at the details for this property. So this property was listed for 149,000, right? So the system automatically tells you the suggested offer. Usually we give a range or a cap, right? So the system told us that we shouldn't be paying more than 140, so we have enough room in this property. So as you can see, we ended up purchasing the property for 140. Why? Because we actually paid 135 because we got a $5,000 credit after doing the inspection on the property. So we saw the property and then we put it on the contract right away, even before we went to see the property. Just by looking at the pictures, look at this. So I'm going to show you the pictures. The rehab on this property is light to medium, okay? So as you can see, it doesn't need much work from the inside, so it's pretty much cosmetic, okay? So we chose to remove the carpet and then redo the floors, obviously the painting, and then changing the light fixtures. What we did in the kitchen is we redid the flooring and then painted the kitchen cabinets and then upgraded the countertops to granite. And also we replaced the appliances with the stainless steel. Now, if we go into the bathrooms, so the bathrooms look in good shape. We just painted them and then changed the vanities and then the tile, okay, in some of the bathrooms. So as you can see, it's got a huge backyard. This property, it's facing the lake. So the first thing that we did is, in the system, look at what the system tells us for the rehab. So the system, based on the square footage, is going to give you a range, right? For the live rehab, if you want to do a rental, or if you want to go on the high end for a fix and flip, you can spend up to $27,000 or more, right? If you find more issues. One of the things that we ended up doing in the property that we did not account for was to do most of the windows. So most of the windows, you cannot see those through the pictures, but they need a replacement. So that we had to take into account. So the first thing that we have to do when we look at a good deal, you've got to be able to analyze the deal in less than 10 minutes. So first of all, friends, number one thing that you're going to do is make sure you validate the ARV, right? So we know, obviously, how much the property is listed for, right? So the second step is you've got to feel confident with the after repair value. So once you make all these enhancements to the property, how much are you going to be able to sell it for, right? So that is step number one. So the way to do that is all you need to do is scroll down on the comps, and then you're going to click on search. So we're going to take the defaults. I'm just going to tell you again. So this is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,500 square feet property, single family. So we're going to default the same values right here. So I want to search all the single family homes in Lake Zurich that are 3 bedrooms, 2 baths that sold in the last 6 months within a 1-mile radius. Okay. Now keep in mind, Lake Zurich, it's a small neighborhood. So you might need to go farther than 1 mile, maybe 1.5, if you don't find anything under the defaults. So if I click on search, okay, only one property came back, and this happens to be the subject property, okay? So I'm gonna uncheck these. What that means is that we've gotta expand our radius. So I'm gonna go up to 2 miles, and then I'm gonna increase the number of months that we're gonna go back. So I'm gonna put 9 months, okay? So when I click on search, let's find all the comps. Again, this is the subject property, so I'm gonna remove that. So we found at least 3 comps, okay, in the neighborhood. So if I go up to the map, okay, so within a 2-mile radius, we found a couple of comps, and right away, we're gonna update the ARV. So this tells me that these comps that are 3 bedrooms, 2 baths in the similar square footage will average out to 250,000, 255,000. So as you can see, rule of thumb, you've got to have at least 100,000 in spread between the price you pay for and what the potential ARV is. That is step number one before you can go into deeper analysis. You've got to have enough room. Otherwise, your numbers are going to be very tight. So you need to look at least between 75,000 and up, okay? If we don't look at anything that has a spread less than 75,000, because the numbers are just going to be too tight, okay? So we don't want to look at those deals. So having said that, we knew that we have about at least $100,000 in the spread, right? So that's going to give you the flexibility to either buy and hold or fix and flip, okay? So the next step is to estimate the rehab, right? So that is the next step. Once you know the ARV, you've got to know how much money it's going to cost you, right? To be able to sell the property for this much. So what we do is we go to the property, obviously, but before we go to the property, we look at the pictures, and we're gonna do our due diligence based on what we see on the pictures, and we're gonna confirm that once we take a look at the picture at the property. So I'm gonna give you the scenario. We're gonna do the ARV, the rehab estimate based on the pictures, based on what I told you, okay? So it's gonna be a light rehab. But by looking at the pictures, guess what? We won't be able to see the fact that we need to replace the windows, okay? So let me just quickly show you how we estimate the rehab. So you're gonna go to the next tab, which is the rehab estimator, okay? And the reason why we do that, we do this in less than a minute, but we just wanna make sure that the number for the rehab is going to make sense, right? So right off the bat, we're gonna leave some bigger ticket items alone, like the roof, the siding, okay? So in this case, so here we have windows. There's no way by looking at the pictures that we're gonna know whether we need to do anything with the windows, the roof, or the siding, right? So, but I'm just gonna tell you, we had to replace 23 windows at $425 a piece. Okay, so here we're gonna go into the interior. So here, painting. So we're gonna put the numbers of square feet. So usually we like to go maybe plus about 100 square feet. So I'm gonna put 1,600 for painting. And then we did some tile in the bathroom. So it was about 200 square feet that we're gonna do in the bathrooms. So you can select whether you're gonna repair or replace. So we're replacing the tile. We're obviously painting brand new. And then we chose to do, to replace the flooring. We put engineered flooring. So I'm just gonna give you a peek of what the after rehab pictures look like, okay? So here, you might be able to see that the windows are new, but on the kitchen, if we go before and after, you can see that on the kitchen, we did the flooring, painted the cabinets, did the appliances. So let me just go to the pictures for the after rehab on the kitchen. So it was a light rehab, right? Just painted the kitchen cabinets, did the countertop, and then replaced the appliances along with the flooring. And then the rest of the property, this is again the kitchen. The rest of the property, all we did is painting, as you can see, and then flooring. So very straightforward. We replaced a few light fixtures in here. But again, it's just flooring and painting, very, very straightforward. Okay, so here we did the vanities. We replaced that, and then we did the tile in the bathtub for one of the bathrooms, and then we did the same thing for the second bathroom, okay? And then the rest is just flooring and painting. That's about it, friends. So having said that, let's just quickly go back to the rehab estimator. Okay, so we were, so let me go into the exterior. So keep in mind that many things you won't be able to estimate until you see the property from the inside. So here we're gonna go, okay, so we were in the tile and then we did the flooring. Okay, so the flooring, we did about 1,500 square feet. So the whole flooring was redone with engineering flooring, which is sort of like the pergo, but it has the look and feel of the hardwood floor. And then we didn't do any doors or kitchen cabinets. The only thing that we did is appliances. So we changed the appliances. So one set, all you need to do is put one set, and then we did two vanities for the bathroom. Okay, so I'm gonna put two for the bathroom and then replace. And then now we go down to the plumbing. So in the plumbing, we knew that we had to fix the sump pump, okay? So I'm gonna put number 1 for the sump pump. And then for the electrical, so there's no way you're gonna know these until you are inside the property. And then the same for the HVAC. So right now we are at 15,000, okay? So 15,000 would be very conservative, right? Because we haven't seen some of the bigger ticket items from the pictures. So let me just give you a fast forward. Once we went into the property to take a look at it, we did realize that we needed windows. So we needed, and some of the windows were big. So we replaced 23 windows, and then at 425 each, okay? And then we also found out, if we go to the electrical, we needed an electrical panel, okay? So it's an interior service panel. So that is one right there, so replaced. It was total new. And then we didn't do anything to the HVAC. Locally, it was in perfect working condition, so we didn't have to touch that. So friends, we are at 26,000 right now with the windows and the service panel. So we had some plumbing issues that we had to fix. That was about 3,000 in plumbing issues, plus some electrical issues that for rewiring that had to be done. So between plumbing, miscellaneous plumbing and electrical, so that should be under electrical. So that was other. We ended up spending for electrical 3,000. Okay, so I'm gonna put replaced, and then the quantity is gonna be 1. And then for plumbing, we also had to spend about 2,000 for some leaks that we had in the property. So here we're gonna put replaced and then 2,000, okay? So when we look at the total rehab estimate, we're at 31,000, okay? So now let's quickly now run the numbers. So once at this point, I believe there's a question on the chat. Oh, what about the granite? Exactly. So that's a great question. Thank you, Janice. I almost missed the granite. Okay. So let me go back to the interior. Okay. So for the kitchen, the granite. Okay. So that was 1 granite countertop, and then the replacement cost was about 1,900. Okay. So now let's look at what number, the total number that we have. So we're looking at, let me see, let me scroll up. So 1,900 replace. Okay, so that needs to be right here. So this is the replacement cost, 1,900 over here. 1,900, so yeah, it went up to, I didn't put the number, 1,900. Thank you, Janice, for replace. Okay, so I need to see, the quantity. I didn't put a quantity. Okay, here we go. So now the rehab went up to almost 35,000, friends, for the rehab. Okay, so now let's go back to the analysis. Okay, so this is how quickly you can briefly estimate the rehab once you went inside the property. Now let's make sure the numbers make sense. So now for a buy and hold, so Zillow tells us the rent is about $1,825, and then we're gonna just put in some utilities. So the utilities are gonna be paid by the tenant. And then the next ticket item is gonna be the maintenance. So maintenance, we're gonna put about 130 a month. Management fee, it's about 50 per month. And then insurance is gonna be about 90 for these. Now the taxes, you don't need to touch. If we give you the taxes, you don't need to change. Now the acquisition cost, so it was 135. So we got it for 140, but then we got 5,000 credit. Okay, now the rehab, so it was actually 35, right? Let me see, let me just go back to make sure. Yeah, it was 34.8, so it was about 35. Let's just put in 35,000. So let's go back to the, so right here, 34. So it just copied over. And then let's just calculate. So if we were to rent a property, we're gonna be making about 575, okay? Which makes sense. That's a great number. Now let's do the fix and flip, right? So after doing the comps, pulling the comps, we can safely say that we can sell the property for $255. Okay, so this is the rehab amount, 35,000. Now the holding time. Remember when we looked at the report in Lake Zurich, properties stay in the market for about 120 days. So let me just quickly go up. Actually, yeah, I missed it. 120 days, they're gonna stay in the market, okay? So what that means is that we need to account for 4 months for market time, and then at least we need to account for 2 months for the rehab. Okay, so that means that we're gonna need to put in at least 6 months to be conservative. So it took us 6 months for the rehab, but 6 months, sorry. It took us 5 weeks for the rehab, but we're gonna count 2 months plus 4 months for market time. So 6 months to do a fix and flip, okay? So now let's go down to the other numbers. So here we have sales cost. This is a percentage of the ARV, and then commissions. These are the brokerage commission. So this is how much you're going to pay your listing broker, right, to help you sell the property. So this is about 5%. So let's put in 5. And then we're going to put in some utilities. So we are paying gas, electric, and water. So we're going to pay about 160 per month. Okay, so 160 per month. And then for insurance, again, 90. Taxes, we're going to leave them alone. And then property cost was 135,000. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so now if we click on calculate, so the net profit on the property will be about 67,000. So looking at the numbers, it's just a great deal, right? So based on the numbers, it does make sense to flip the property, right? Because if you think about it, we purchased the property for 135 and we put down 15%. So let me show you the numbers. So 135 times 15%. So we put in about 20,000. And now if we can add a profit of about 67,000, that's going to be 87,000, right? So if we were to use that money, we can put it into 2 or 3 more properties at least, right? So we can duplicate the same cash flow, about 400 to 600, into other properties. So if we buy and hold the property, we're going to be making about 600. But if we utilize the profit from this deal and put it into 2 other properties, instead of cash flowing 500 or 600, we're going to be cash flowing at least 1,200. Does that make sense? So that is why we chose to, we're going to put it in the MLS this week for sale. Now, this is the ARV that we came up with. We're going to put it on the market for about 265, okay? Why? Because we need to allow for some room of negotiation. So we're gonna list the property for about 265 to 269, okay? So the plan is to flip the property. So this is how quickly you should be able to analyze the deal. Something that is also very important when you analyze the deal is that you look at the market overview and market trends, right? Because this is going to give you a good idea, a good indication of what the housing trends are in that particular zip code, right? The crime, not only that, but the schools. Because the schools, as you can see, the schools are very good in Lake Zurich. So this is what's driving property prices up, right? So now let's scroll down so you see the demographics. So look at this, homeowner, that's the home ownership percentage is very high. So this is a great indicator. And then the median household income, 125. So it is very, very high. This is a great area. So that's why I wanted to analyze this property, because it makes a lot of sense to do a flip in this area. Now, do anybody on the line, do you have a property that you would like us to analyze on the fly right now? Janice, Dale, do you have any property that you might be looking at that perhaps we can just run some numbers very quickly?
I have one.
Okay, so can you send me the address via the chat?
It's not coming up on a chat. Chat is not working. I'm trying to do it.
Here's one.
Okay, did somebody send one?
Yeah, can you see that?
Okay, let me open up the chat and then I'll be able to tell you. Okay, so yes. So we found, okay, so I see 2 properties, one in Gurnee and the other one in Cary, Illinois. Okay, so let's take a look at the first one that came in, okay? So the first one, came in is, so please tell us, Christy, so this is a property in Gurnee. Are you looking at this property? Do you have this on the contract? Because you know, we want to make sure that if it's a deal that you're working on, we if you want us to keep it confidential, then we do so. So is it okay to go over the numbers? Is this a property that you have on the contract, or is this something that you already bought? Okay, so the property is not on the contract. So let's quickly analyze that property in Gurnee. So the first thing that we need to do is find out about Gurnee, right? Let's okay, so I'm gonna pull up the Gurnee, right? Let's just quickly look at Gurnee. So Gurnee is close to the border with Wisconsin, but I don't know much about Gurnee, right? It's kind of far for us. So the first thing that you need to do is look at Gurnee, and then I have the property address right here. Okay, so let's just quickly find out what Gurnee is all about, right? So for those of us who are not familiar with Gurnee, let me make this a little bit bigger. Okay, so Gurnee, it's in the border of Wisconsin. And then, so the only thing that we see is highways. Now, something that I told you before is that the livability score has to be over 70%, which is great, right? So this passes. So I'm interested in Gurnee. Now let's look at the crime. So the crime is slightly below average. And then let's just scroll down. Let's look at the important stuff. Schools, we're gonna be looking at the schools for that particular zip code on that property. And then household income, look, is way above the average, 85,000. That's a good indicator. Population growth, it's over 5%, what I told you, to look at properties, right? In areas that have population growth higher than 5%. So 8%, it's a fairly stable growing area, Gurnee. Now let's look at the industry. So the industry, there's a lot of hospitals, it seems like, in Gurnee. And then let's scroll down. Housing occupancy, 70% owner occupancy, 26% renters. And then vacancy, very low vacancy rate. And then the owner occupancy is fairly high, 70%. So I'm starting to like this area now. So this is a B area. We recommend cash flow. Now let's look at the numbers, right? So we're gonna analyze a single family home. So the first thing that I wanna know is, what's the sweet spot to buy a single family home in Gurnee? Less than 255. How long are they gonna stay in the market? For about 3 months. But look at this, there are a lot of flips happening in the area. Okay, so that is something to keep in mind. And then let's look at the rents, right? How are the rents looking in Gurnee? So for a 2-bedroom, it's about 1,000. A 3-bedroom, 1,400, and they stayed in the market for about a month and a half. So it's a fairly decent area, right? So keep in mind that we need to buy a property under 255 in Gurnee. So having said that, let's do a power search on that particular property that I was given. So this is the property. Let's pull it up. So I'm closing some of these tabs so that we don't get confused. Okay, well, that is coming back. When you do the power search, we're going to go after all the off-market records. We're going to look at the MLS. So we go to all the resources, data sources that we have access to pull as much information as possible on that particular property. whether it's off market, MLS, not for sale, we are going to try to find it, okay? Okay, so it seems like the property came back and then we lost it. Let me click on it again. So the power search comes in handy when you're driving by a given neighborhood and then you see a property that you might be interested in. This is when you want to use the power search, okay? But if you already know it's a property that is in the MLS, then you can directly use the MLS search. Or if you know that it's under foreclosure, you can look for that particular property in the off-market properties.
I hear you.
No sound.
Can't hear you.
Other Kingdom, everything.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, awesome. Okay, sorry. So let me just backtrack a bit. So the first thing that I did is pull up the comps. Okay. So what we did is we just took the defaults. The only thing that we open up is the number of bathrooms from 2 to 3, and then bedrooms 1 to 3. But based on the square footage of this subject property, we're going to be getting comps that are at least a 3-bedroom. Okay. So what we do is we take the closed price. This is how much the property sold for, and then we're going to average them out. So we can safely say that this property is worth about $253,000. And then based on this square footage, the rehab is going to be a lot higher, right? So it's going to be at least between, I would say, 25 to 40. So having said that, we can quickly look at one of the numbers here. So the ARV is going to be 253, right? And then the rehab, you always want to go, I would say, in the middle between 30 to 40. So I'm going to say 35,000 for the rehab on this size property at least. So 1, 2, 3. Now the whole time they're going to stay in the market for about, if we go back to the report, Gurney, let me go back to the report. So here they're going to stay in the market for about Sales market analysis for about 3 months, okay? So 87 days. So here we're gonna count 3 months for market time plus 2 for the rehab. It's gonna be at least 5 months. And then again, the sales commission is gonna be 5%. And then utilities, we're gonna be paying for that. So this is gonna be a little bit higher, 175. Insurance might be 110 for this size property. Taxes. Now, to find out about the taxes, all you need to do is click on the owner loan tab and then scroll to the bottom, okay? So here, taxes are 5911. So we're gonna divide 5911 by 12. So they're gonna be about 500 for taxes. And then, so while we're in this tab, so this is gonna give you great information. First of all, we're gonna find out who the owner is. Chiron, Johnson, and Nita. Okay, these are the owners, and then they have a loan that was issued back in 2006 for $210,000. Okay, and this is the transaction history. So it was purchased for $280 back in 2006, and the loan they took out was for $211. But this is back in 2006. So obviously the outstanding loan on this is going to be about $150,000, and we know who the owners are. So now let's go back to the flip calculator. So now for the numbers to work, so the taxes are going to be 500, so they're kind of high. And then how much are we going to pay for the property? So we know the property is worth $253. So remember that I told you that you need to have at least a spread of between 75 to 100,000. So if we know the property is worth 253 minus at least 75,000, right? So you need to pay no more than, let's say, 180 on this property. So here we have, let's make this 180, okay? 1, 2, 3. And then let's calculate. So if we do the 180, we have a net profit of about 20,000, okay? So which, in my opinion, for a 5-month project is low, right? When you have a net profit on a flip of 20,000 or less, guess what? You should not do a flip. Why? Because you're going to be making 20,000 in at least 5 months. So if you divide that, okay, so 20,000 divided by 5 months, guess what? You're only going to be making 4,000 per month. And guess what? To manage a rehab for a property of this size, it's going to be a lot of work, okay? And you're going to have a lot of resources tied up for 4 to 5 months. So friends, it's totally not worth doing a fix and flip on this property. For that matter, you can do a wholesale on this property and you can make this much money and probably without doing anything on the property. Does that make sense? So keep in mind, a flip that is going to net you 20,000 or less, you must do a wholesale. You cannot afford to do a fix and flip on a $20,000 net profit. Okay, now let's just quickly look at the rental. So the rent seems to be pretty high. Okay, now the utilities are going to be paid by the tenant. The maintenance is going to be, let's do 140. Management fee is going to be, let's say, 75. Insurance is going to be 110. Taxes are going to be 500. And then we're going to pay 180 for the property. Okay, 1, 2, 3. No more than 180 for the property. Let's look at the numbers. So we're going to be making about 500. So it does make sense for a buy and hold, but it doesn't make sense for a fix and flip. And that is why in the report, when you look at the suggested approach that we recommend is cash flow. So we already know that Gurney, the numbers are going to work better for buy and hold. Why? Because the rents are high and they stay in the market for not too long. Not only that, but vacancies are so low, right? So it totally makes sense to do a cash flow approach. Not only that, but if you look at the sales market analysis, there are, what else? Oh, okay. So now, so the rental market. So yeah, the rents are high and they stay in the market for about a month and a half. So that is why it makes sense on this property to do a buy and hold. Okay, you're gonna be cash flowing 500. Okay, so again, it doesn't make sense to fix and flip. It just makes sense to do a buy and hold or a wholesale. Okay, so if you want to wholesale the property, then it makes sense, right? Because you can easily wholesale this property for at least 10, 15,000 in about 1 month or 2 months without doing any work. So that is totally doable. So friends, again, not recommended to do a fix and flip because you will only net 20,000 in 5 or 6 months. It's just not worth it. But I like it for a cash flow approach, right? And then when we look at the market overview, so this sort of reinforces what the rental market is in Gurnee. So for this property that we're looking at, obviously it's a little bit on the high end because of the size of the property. So that is why the ARV 253 is greater than 225 of the median, okay? So now if we scroll down to some other stats, like crime and schools. So what's important here is the schools, right? So Gurnee has great schools. The middle and elementary are just okay, right? So they're not the best. So overall, to conclude the analysis on this particular property, if you want to buy and hold, it makes total sense. If you want to wholesale the property, fine, for 10, 15,000, but you cannot do a fix and flip. So friends, as a rule of thumb, all the properties that we pursue, we have 2 successful exit strategies. So we can either do a buy and hold or a fix and flip. We don't like to buy properties that we're going to be limited to only a rental or a flip, right? We want to make sure that we're going to be able to take any of these exit strategies. And obviously, wholesale is a given, right? You can wholesale any property, right, in any market. But for the traditional exit strategies, when you pursue a property, you want to make sure that you have a successful buy and hold and fix and flip exit strategy. So in this case, this is not a successful fix and flip. Therefore, personally, we would not pursue this property, okay? We would not pursue this property. We want to make sure that we will also be able to do a fix and flip on the property, right? In case that we want to release some of the funds or buy another property, here we won't be able to do it on a fix and flip. Okay, so are there any other properties that you would like us to analyze? Can you send it via the chat?
I have sent you already.
Okay, here, so we have another one in Carol Stream. Oh yeah, Carol Stream. Is this in the MLS, Paresh?
No.
Okay, we have another one for Sergio. Okay, so let's quickly do a power search on this. Okay. So we're doing a Carol Stream. Okay, so let's see what we come up with. Okay, so we found the property in Carol Stream. So this time, friends, I'm gonna do it a lot faster. Okay, so let me just close off what we just went over. Okay, we're gonna close Gurnee. So this is Carol Stream. So first of all, what is Carol Stream all about, right? So I'm gonna go the way that I would do it. Okay, friends. If it's too fast, please let me know. But this is how successful investors do it. So I'm gonna maximize the report. First of all, I wanna see the livability score in Carol Stream. Okay, it's 79, good. Now I wanna see the crime is low, perfect. Schools look great. Purchasing power, 74 It's awesome. I want to see population growth. Well, it's a stable area. It's a little bit negative, but I would say this is like 0, right? So it's a stable area, Carroll Stream. Now, I want to know the vacancies. Vacancy rate is 4%. That's awesome. Owner occupancy, 63. There's a higher rental percentage. It's still all good. So this is a B area for cash flow. What's the sweet spot to buy a single family home in Carroll Stream? 244, and it's going to stay in the market for 2 months. I want to know what the rents are. So a 3-bedroom is going to go for 1,600, a 2-bedroom for 1,250. How long do they stay in the market? For a month, month and a half. I like this area. Let's look at the property. Okay. So this property, let's look at the case, right? So the auction date is going to be coming up in March 12th. So we have about a month and a half, okay, to negotiate the deal. And then it's going to be obviously at the DuPage courthouse. So we have enough. Now let's look at how much equity we have on this deal. So the owner owes $118,000, and the property is worth, it could be worth up to 300,000. So there's a lot of equity on this property. Look at this. There's over 150,000. So this is a great deal. Okay, now I want to know when the last payment was made. So the last payment recorded was about a year ago. Okay, so this is awesome, friends, because the foreclosure process can take up to 2 years. But in this case, look at this. It's taking about a year and 3 months by the time the property is being auctioned off at the courthouse. So this process in DuPage, it's pretty fast. In Cook County, this would take almost 2 years, but Cook County seems to work a lot faster on the foreclosures. So this is, just by looking at this is a great deal. Okay, now the first thing that I'm gonna do is look at liens. There are no other liens, okay? So now I wanna see the comps. I'm gonna run the comps for these just to verify that this property is indeed worth between 270 to 300,000. Okay, so I'm gonna run the comps. So this is, we don't know how many bedrooms, 1 bath, 1836 square footage. So what we're gonna do is, I want all the properties that have between 1 to 3 bedrooms and 1 to 2 bathrooms, and then that's sold within a 2-mile radius in the last 6 months. Let's see what it comes back with. Okay, so we found 2 properties, so 3-bedroom, 1.5 and 2 baths with a similar square footage, because the subject property has 1,800 square feet. So these comps are in the ballpark. So I just want to go up to see the ARV. So yeah, the ARV could be even over 300,000. Okay, so the ARV is pretty high on this property, but I want to show you something right here. So the subject property is 1,800 square feet. This comp that we're looking at has 2,100 square feet. So is slightly bigger, and it's sold for 375. So I would say this is sort of like an outlier. It's on the high end. So let's quickly look at this property and see if it's been rehabbed. So it looks pretty big, right? Let's look at the property from the inside. Okay, so it seems like, based on the pictures, it's outdated. It's pretty outdated. That is why it took like almost a year to sell. Okay, but it's just so big. This property is so big. Now let's look at the other comp. Okay, so the first one on Essex, 476. So this property sold for 269. And then let's look at the condition for these properties. Okay, so there are no pictures from the inside. But in my opinion, this is a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath, 1,675 square feet. This is more comparable to the subject property we're looking at. So for sure, I know our property is not worth more than 300,000. I would say it's closer to this value, to the 270, between 270 to 285, okay? I believe it's not worth over 300,000. Okay, and this property sold in 2 days. So totally, this property could be worth between 270, I would say, up to 290. Okay, so now we have a lot of room to work with right here. So let's just quickly, I know right off the bat, the analysis is going to work for a rental and a fleet. So the rents are very high. Utilities are going to be paid by the tenant. Maintenance is going to be 130. Management fee is going to be 50. Insurance is going to be, let's say, 110. And then taxes. I'm going to click on the owner loan to look at the taxes. So if we scroll down, the taxes are $4,500. So $4,500 divided by 12. Okay, $375. So let's go back to the rental. $375 for the taxes. Okay, and then how much are we going to buy the property for? So here's the biggest point that I'm going to make. So the owner owes $118,000. So you've got to pay this fee, plus you've got to give the Ryan relocation package, right, for them to move out and settle somewhere else, because in about 45 days, Ryan and Colleen are going to lose the home, the equity, everything, right? So at this point, even if you were to pay, remember what I told you, this property is worth about $280,000. So you cannot pay more than $180, right? So even what I would say is make an offer for $150, okay? So here, 150, 1, 2, 3. And then the rehab, let's look at the rehab. So the rehab is between 22 to 33,000. I would put the rehab at 35,000 just to be conservative. And then let's just look at the numbers. So obviously it's gonna cash flow like amazing, almost 800. And for the flip, it's also going to be amazing. So the ARV on this property, I would say, I'm gonna put it at 285, 1, 2, 3. So how did I come up with the 285? Looking at this comp on Essex, right? Because of the square footage, this is a little bit smaller property, and it just lasted 2 days on the market. So it sold for 269. So our subject property is slightly bigger, right? So that is why I'm gonna go for 280, 285. But let's just be conservative. Let me go back. So let's do 279, okay, for the ARV, being conservative. Now the rehab on the flip, we suggest between 22 to 33. So here we're gonna go 40, okay? In case that we decide to like make it super, super amazing. Now the whole time, remember, properties in Coral Stream are gonna stay on the market for, let me go back up. They're gonna stay in the market for, where is that number? Oh, here. 72. Average sold market time 72, so 2 months. Okay, so they're going to stay in the market for at least 2 months plus 2 months for the rehab, so 4 months is accurate. Now commission, we're going to pay 5 commission. Now utilities, we're going to pay maybe 170 for gas, electric, water. Insurance is going to be about 110, and taxes, we said they were going to be 375. So let me do 375, and then we're gonna pay for this property. We said 150, no more than 150. Well, our max allowable offer is 180, right? So what's let's settle in the middle between 180 and 150. That's 165. Okay, so we're gonna pay up to 165 for this property. So let's just click on calculate. So yeah, the profit is gonna be 55,000. So it makes sense. It's just a great deal. Even if you were to pay 165,000, keep in mind that the outstanding balance is 118, right? But even if you pay 165,000, you're gonna be making at least $50,000 on the flip, which is a great thing, right? It's a great deal. Because as a rule of thumb, friends, you want to make at least 20,000 every 100,000. So if the property cost is 200,000, you should expect to make 40,000 on the flip, right? And this property is worth, let's say, if we buy it for 165, we're going to be making over 50,000. So this is a great flip, right? So it will be like a slam dunk. Not only that, but the rental is just amazing, right? Why? Because the rental market in Carol Stream is awesome. Rents are high and they stay on the market for a month and a half. So if I go back to the report, they stay in the market for a month, month and a half, and the rents are high. So Paresh, this is a great deal, okay? This is a great deal. If you can get these for less than 180,000, it's an awesome deal. You're gonna be able to do just about anything with this property. You can wholesale the property, you can buy and hold. What we would do is buy and hold because of the cash flow, right? The tenant would be paying for the property, and then you're gonna be pocketing about 800. So it's a no-brainer to do a buy and hold on this property. And that's actually what we recommend on the area report, right? So we recommend to do a cash flow approach in Carol Stream. Why? Because low vacancies, high rents, and they stay in the market for a month or so. So it makes sense to buy and hold this property. So Paresh, the next step is for you to make an appointment with Ryan, right? Try to get this property on the contract, and boom, this is Ryan's contact information.
Yes, I'm talking to him.
That's amazing, Paresh. If you're talking to Ryan, that's awesome. That is just incredible. So now, something to keep in mind, Paresh. Make sure that you talk to the decision maker, right? So Colleen, don't forget about Colleen, because you've got to talk to the decision maker. So ideally, you talk to both, but you've got to focus your efforts on the decision maker. So try to get this property on the contract. Remember, you can pay up to 180, and the numbers are going to make total sense. Up to 180, and this property is worth easily 280, easily, like no tomorrow. So if you can get it on the contract for 180, that'll be an awesome deal. And funding is not going to be a problem. It's going to be easy. Okay, so yeah, thank you. Was this helpful, Paresh?
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Awesome. So I hope it was helpful also for the people on the line. So this is how quickly you should be able to analyze the deals, pull up the comps, and making sure. So what we did is we pulled some off-market and on-market properties, and we were able to, first of all, pull up some comps. Second, estimate the rehab. Obviously, once you see the property from the inside or get an inspection report, then you can run these numbers very accurately. And then just quickly run the numbers just to make sure that you have both buy and hold and a fix and flip successful exit strategy. Remember, you've got to make more than 20,000 on the flip. Otherwise, you can wholesale it. But our personal suggestion is you've got to make over 20,000 on the flip, and then obviously between over 400 on the cash flow to go full speed with that particular deal. Okay, so friends, are there any questions on the line? Are there any questions?
I have a question, Hugo.
Yes, Paresh.
When the auction takes place, so foreclosure takes place before that or after that?
So they are in foreclosure, right? So at the auction, what's going to happen is they're going to auction off the property, and the bank, in this case the plaintiff, they're going to set the starting bid, right? So this property could sell for over 200,000 at the auction. So that is why you don't want to wait for the auction, right? Because this is where a lot of investors are going to show up. And not only that, but you might not be able to see the property from the inside, and then you might need to pay cash for the property. And obviously you might overpay for the property. So what you're doing is the right thing, talking to the owner.
No, I'm not talking about this particular property, but there's another property which I'm looking. The foreclosed days happen already in October. Now it's going in auction, this place. So when foreclosures happen, the owner lose all the rights, right, or no, not yet?
Yes, they call it redemption redemption time. So once they got foreclosed, they have about 3 months.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yes, they still have about 3 months once they got foreclosed. So let's say on this particular property on March 12th, that's when the property will be auctioned off. And if it doesn't get sold, then it's going to go back to the bank. Okay. And then, so pretty much the owner got foreclosed, but there's a redemption period of about 90 days that the owner can still come back to the bank and say, you know, I'm willing I have the money to satisfy the debt. So they have about 90 days after the property went for auction.
I see. Okay.
Okay, but what most banks are going to do is they will right away try to send this property to the auctioning platforms such as auction.com, hubzu.com, because they're not in the business of real estate. But yeah,
now, Hugo, in this property, what happened? The main owner, they died, you know, like 2 years ago. Now heirs have that, and they don't have any will or probate or anything. And the property is already foreclosed. So how you can buy that?
Okay, so when so it's already foreclosed.
Yeah, it's foreclosed in October.
Okay, so let me just look at the owner record. So
no, I'm not talking about this property. There's another property.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so which I'm talking to them also, but the owners died like 2 years ago. No probate, no will. Now the brothers are living over there and the property is already foreclosed. Now the auction will be taking place in 2 months.
Okay, so in that case, it's more complicated because let me show you something. So that's a great question, friends. I'm going to go to the probates. I'm going to show you something very important. So here on the probates, what happens is when somebody dies, then the property gets passed on to the heirs, right? And then, but the heirs need to file for probate. What that means is to pretty much open up the case, right? And then when they open up the case for the probate, the court is going to determine at that point if there's a will or not. If there's a will, then that means that the property is testate. And if there's not a will, that means that it's intestate. So when there's not a will, like in this case, guess what's going to happen? The court it's going to assign an executor or administrator of the will. And that executor or administrator of the will is going to be an immediate heir of the person who passed away. So if, let's say, the father passed away, they're going to look at the wife or the widow. If the widow is still alive, then the widow is going to be named the executor. Okay, so then you will need to work with the widow in this case. So you need to track down the heirs. But they need to file for probate because at that point is that tells that the family is ready to move on, right? After they went through the obviously emotional distress of the passing of their loved one, then at that point that indicates that they're ready to move on, right? With the property in this case. So, but you also need to find out if the probate has real estate attached to it. That is why we have this indicator. So make sure that you look for that property here. The property that you're talking about, make sure you look for it and make sure that you have the real estate attached says yes. Because some probates, guess what? They just have personal property like vehicles, jewelry. They don't have real estate. So we don't care about those probates. We care about probates that have real estate attached to it. Okay, so first of all, make sure that you do a search for that property you are talking about in here, okay? And then you also need to track down the heirs. So you can send us the name of the, we can do some skip tracing, some investigation service for you to track down the relatives of the particular individual who passed away, okay? Because you need to talk to them and find out about the probate. But otherwise, you can find it here. Just look up the address under the probate leads, okay? And then this is going to tell you, like, let me just open up one. Let me show you what I mean. So if I open up a probate lead in here, you're going to be able to see. So here is the person who passed away, right? And then, but look at this. Real estate attached to it says no. So we don't care about this probate because there's no real estate attached to it. There's only personal property like cars, furniture, and so forth. But what I mean is that you need to talk to the administrator. So that could be the heir. This is who you need to talk to on that particular property, or the attorney. So yeah, we can help you. If you give me the address, obviously probably you don't want to disclose this in front of the group, but you can send that to us and then we can help you do some more due diligence on the property. So we can find out whether the probate has been opened, and then we can find out if there's been an administrator already assigned by the court, okay? If it was intestate, so that means no will. So we can help you do some due diligence.
Okay.
Awesome. So thank you everyone for joining the webinar tonight. I hope it was productive and you learned something new, or at least you were reminded of something new. Yes.
Is it possible you can go to one that shows the hair on there real quick?
To do what? Excuse me?
Like that one has the administrator. The administrator, is that the hair?
Yes, that's the hair.
Okay.
And let me tell you, I've done a webinar just on probate. So I'm going to show you where that is. So if you go to training, check out this Probate Investing Simplified with Sharon Bornhort. She's the queen of probates. And I believe I did another webinar on probates myself. Let me see, we have it up here under the training. Let me see. So no, we don't have it posted yet. So we're gonna do a webinar on probates, okay? So that's gonna be coming up in the next few weeks. So stay tuned. We're gonna do a webinar on probate. So it's gonna be very powerful. Okay. And then,
do you have any contract for a probate?
the probate that you can, it's this one. You can use the off-market 2-page contract. So this is the one that you can use for the probate. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, you can use this one. And then when you work with the executor or administrator. But yeah, we're gonna do a webinar coming up soon with on probates. We're gonna talk about all of these. Awesome. So thank you everyone for joining tonight, and stay tuned. And I'll see you next Wednesday, same time. Okay. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you, Hugo.
Thank you. Bye-bye.